Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another episode of the Geach Pundit Podcast. My name is Scott Turner, and I am joined by Buzz Brockway.
Yo.
Buzz, we do not have Jason tonight because we don't even know why. He didn't even tell us. He just said he wasn't going to be here.
Yeah. No.
Is that okay?
I don't know. I'm not sure if this is an excused absence or not.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to have to check the employee handbook to see if this is acceptable or not. But wherever you are, Jason, you're not missed. And we're going to kick off this podcast by talking about a kickoff, right? This week, David Perdue kicked off a tour of Georgia in Alpharetta. And did you see the photos that Greg Bluestein tweeted out from the event?
I mean, look, you and I have attended a lot of political events. It's easy to get bored of these things because we've heard this, just be honest, politicians say the same things over and over and over again. But the crowd, crowd's a generous term. The folks who were standing behind didn't look all that excited. I mean, they weren't, there wasn't this, they weren't conveying this burning passion for a Governor David Perdue. I mean, it was that one poor gentleman who was standing there holding a cup of coffee, and
it was definitely decaf coffee. It was definitely decaf because he was not peppy
by Greg Bluestein, and we trust his reporting. It was decaf coffee, and but I mean, God bless him. He just kind of looked like he wandered in for a refill, and then they said, "Hey, stand over here." So
he definitely was. He definitely had the vibe of "I was here for the food." That guy. I don't know who you are, but we're in love with you over here at the Peach Pundit Podcast. But what was also interesting was it's sort of that vibe of everybody's waiting for a root canal. They were in the dentist office waiting room vibe. You'd been there, right? Nobody's happy to be there. But it has to be done kind of thing is right. Really kind of the vibe you have when you're in the waiting room at the dentist office. Yeah. So the really big thing for me, I was surprised, but not at all surprised by the presence of Senator Brandon Beach of Alpharetta. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I was surprised, but not surprised is because I served with Senator Beach in the Cherokee County legislative delegation. And this sort of behavior is sort of par for the course for him. But he begged and begged and begged to be endorsed by Brian Kemp in his last election. And so Brian Kemp didn't give him an endorsement, but gave him a very nice statement saying that he wished to work with him on certain issues. But he also gave that statement to Senator Beach's opponent, Michael Caldwell, who you and I are both friends with and close with. And so they both got, generalized friendly statements from the governor. But Senator Beach ran that as an endorsement. Like, I've been endorsed by Senator Beach. And so now that his credibility has been destroyed because he clearly wasn't endorsed by the governor, he has had his chairmanship stripped because he's been dishonest with people in his own caucus and his own leadership. And now he's on the back row of his caucus and looking at his political career sort of through the rear view window. He's seeing his political career going the opposite direction of him, right? And even though he really wanted that endorsement and claimed it falsely and ran ads even after he was asked to stop claiming it, that he was endorsed by Governor Kemp, he stood in Alpharetta this week and he proudly proclaimed David Perdue was going to be the next governor of the state of Georgia.
I mean, I think, look, those are your thoughts.
Those are my thoughts. Those are not Buzz's thoughts.
Yeah, we're on here expressing our thoughts, right? I mean, it is. Yeah, it puts Beach in there's not a lot of legislative. We talked about this before, that overwhelmingly the members of the House and Senate Republican caucuses have lined up behind Brian Kemp, and as far as I know, Beach is the only one who has now come out publicly and endorsed David Perdue. So that it's either a very wise political calculation or a very bad one. So, and time will tell.
Well, it's just par for the course. In my personal dealings with him, I'm not at all surprised that he would want the endorsement of somebody that he would endorse somebody against. And that's exactly what has happened here. Within a 1.5 year period of time, he has gone from needing Brian Kemp to trying to knife him in the back.
Mm.
And that type of loyalty is often punished in politics. It's I think a calculated gamble on Senator Beach's part. Maybe he's hoping he can reclaim some of the damage that has been done by his own words and actions. Senator Beach used to be the mainstream middle of the road Republican, right?
Yeah.
And fairly well respected in both sides of the aisle. And there have been several stories now about how far off the edge he's gone. And, and I've had members in the Senate kind of chuckle when his name's brought up. So it's unfortunate that he's decided to take this path. But I'm not surprised based on who I know him to be. And these are, again, my words, not Buzz, so don't take this out on Buzz if you're watching this.
Yeah.
This is all about my perspective.
I'm not like Neil Young and demanding that Scott be removed from the Peach Pundit podcast. I fully support free speech and the right to express one's opinion. So.
And I fully support rocking in the free world. So, and we're going to be on Spotify. So that's also good. But also coming out of the governor's race, anyway, before we move on, Senator Perdue is blitzing the state. He's running around. His campaign seems to be Trump, I'm endorsed by Trump. Trump again, I'm endorsed by Trump. His first official campaign commercial featured President Trump saying, "Vote for David Perdue." And attacking Brian Kemp by name.
Yep. Brian Kemp has let us down, allegedly.
Let us down, yes. And that David Perdue is a strong fighter and a man of character. I don't doubt his character as much, but the fighting side, I don't know how you claim that with a straight face when you don't show up to a debate because you got your butt beat the first time around.
And I think, and Scott, you remember we talked about this when he first started running. His initial video was all about how, Brian Kemp, I lost because of Brian Kemp, and et cetera, the election was stolen, yada, yada, yada. But then he started, oh no, my race is not all about, that's not, I'm running for other things. I'm running to unite the party. I'm running to stop Stacey Abrams. And no, I'm not really, he tried to pivot for a moment. And now he's come back out. His first ad is all Trump. I mean, it is literally, I'm running because Brian Kemp let us down. And so it is all about Trump. It is all about, a vengeance camp. I don't know how he can escape telling us, escape people assuming that the whole purpose of this campaign is to seek revenge on behalf of Donald Trump.
Well, to that point,
I don't know I don't know how you can make that case.
What else is he going to run on? What is he going to attack Kemp on? Is he going to attack Kemp on his handling of the economy? Is he going to?
He's attacked him for not calling a special session to overturn the election. I mean, that's.
But is he going to? But is he going to attack him on the economy? I mean, yes, that's the only thing he has to run on. He can't attack him on the economy because Kemp's handling of the economy has been exemplary, right?
Yeah.
Is he going to attack him on backing the blue? He's
can't do that.
He's been a law and order guy from the moment.
Cutting taxes.
You can't attack him on his tax stance. He cut taxes while cutting spending, while giving raises and bonuses to teachers and police officers.
And I think there will be raises for state employees in this budget too, because our economy's recovered.
Revenue has continued to go up.
Yeah.
More people, total people, are employed today in Georgia than ever in our state's history. Yeah. Not just the 2-point-something% unemployment rate, but the actual number of Georgians employed and working full time is the highest it's ever been. Yeah. So
you're right. I mean, this gets back to what we talked about the moment that he ran. When there's nothing there that David Perdue can disagree with. So what are you left with? You're left with one issue: Donald Trump. They disagree on Donald Trump. That's it.
That's the only thing.
And so that's what Perdue, and I just can't see. I mean, Scott, we've seen polling and where the importance of an endorsement by Trump continues to trend down. There's still don't get me wrong. There's still a good chunk of the Republican Party where that's the number one thing they're looking for. But that number is shrinking every day. So people are asking, okay, great, you got Trump's, and people are going to ask David Perdue, great, you got Trump's endorsement. Okay, well, what does that do for? What are you going to do for me?
Right.
And he's got to have more. And I don't know. I don't know what he's going to come up with. But
we as a party would be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, to use a phrase, if we get rid of Brian Kemp at this point in time.
Agreed.
And I just don't see why we would take a proven effective conservative governor and toss him aside based upon some dubious claims and to make somebody else very happy. You know, that doesn't even live here, right? I mean, it's just about making one person happy.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but the effectiveness of this governor is without question. You cannot say he has not been the most effective conservative governor elected in history, with all due respect to Nathan Deal and Sonny Perdue.
Right.
He's been far more effective, and to take him out now would be foolish. Just cutting your nose to spite your face. But
and Scott, I think, as we're talking about this, there were 2 polls released last week that showed Governor Kemp in a very strong position in relation to David Perdue and in relation to Stacey Abrams. He matches up better to Stacey Abrams, which is a claim that Perdue is trying to make. Purdue's trying to say, I can unite the party. He can't. I alone can beat Stacey Abrams. Thus far, the polling is not reflecting that. And then Kemp came out with very strong fundraising numbers through the end of the year.
Which would have been stronger had he not picked up a primary opponent named David Perdue.
Yeah.
He had 7 million plus that he raised in 6 months, which is, but he was beat by Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams raised 9 million.
Yeah.
And he would have raised more than that. It had not been for David Perdue getting into this race.
Right.
So you're already seeing the damage being done by David Perdue's presence in the race.
And a lot of that money, Brian Kemp is going to have to spend defeating David Perdue.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to replenish his war chest. Meanwhile, Abrams is just going to continue to roll it in.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see how anybody could see how this is a good thing.
No.
It's just not. I mean, it's just not. But the polling had some other data points that was interesting. In that poll, 70% of Republicans in Georgia have a favorable opinion of Brian Kemp.
Mm-hmm.
So his favorables were really high. I forget what the favorables were for David Perdue, but they were, I think, slightly higher than Kemp's as far as overall favorability with Republican voters. But in that poll, our friend, our former colleague, Vernon Jones, was not doing so well. Polling in the single digits, low double digits in a lot of polls. Right around 10%. It seems to be his ceiling.
Yeah.
And so this week, Vernon Jones tweeted a photo of him with the president.
Sounds like he went to Mar-a-Lago recently. Is that
it's what it looked like. It looked like he was in Mar-a-Lago visiting President
conferring
Trump.
With 45.
Yep. And so Vernon, he is an exciting speaker when you see him in person.
No doubt.
But it's sort of like the veneer on a really cheap desk. It might look good on the surface, but once you get below there, it's going to fall apart real fast.
Yeah. Covering up a really,
chintzy piece of furniture.
Not what you expect. Right.
Right. It's like a very nice throw rug you put over the couch you had in college.
Yeah.
That's so that speaking ability is unquestionably good. And so he can give a good speech. I'm not going to lie. Vernon is a compelling public speaker. His policy stances over the years have been atrocious, though. And he's not known for being the most forthcoming person throughout his time in public service. That being said, polling is terrible for him. And there have been rumors. You and I have both heard rumors. And I'll let you go first with what you're hearing.
Well, that he is going to pivot away from the governor's race and run for something else, and folks seem to be speculating that. I mean, this is not a new rumor. A few, not long after David Perdue got in the race, there were speculation that Vernon would get out and that he would run for Secretary of Education or here in Georgia, and that seems to have fizzled out. Folks seem to be narrowing in on that he's going to run for Congress in either the 6th district or the 10th district. And now it's even being narrowed down further that the rumor mill that you and I have heard seems to suggest that Vernon is going to go run in the 10th district of Georgia here. So in an already very crowded field.
right? We're talking like Walton County is in the 10th, right? We're talking some rural areas.
Yeah.
Do you see Vernon Jones as a good fit for the 10th district?
No.
I mean, that Southern Baptist quilting circle is going to get together and talk about how Vernon had a three-way sexual encounter. I don't. You know, I'm making Buzz blush right now.
Cultural fit. Snuggles is not a good cultural fit for the 10th.
Yeah, I don't understand why the 10th. Now, the 10th is packed with candidates, and Vernon has a very loud, obnoxious cheerleader who sends out unsolicited emails. And
I've been removed from her list all of a sudden.
But you know, Vernon's from day one of Vernon even thinking about running. This cheerleader person has been all over Vernon for governor.
And if you recall, this person said, this is, I guess, another person on our list of she who shall not be named, but loudly saying Vernon Jones will never drop out of the governor's race, ever.
Right.
Only rhinos would suggest such a thing.
Yeah, today the email was singing a little bit different tune, where she had endorsed other candidates for Congressional 10, and she decided to rescind those endorsements and attack them directly head on, and while rescinding the endorsements and saying that, you know, they were too involved with perhaps getting Vernon out of the congressional race for the 10th district. So she's singing a different tune, but that's what this particular cheerleader does. She flips with the wind. And so you can't really trust what you read in these types of emails, but it's hilarious that you have somebody out there who's been saying Vernon Jones will never, ever give up the race for governor. He's going to be the next governor. He's going to win the nomination. And he'll be the next governor of the state of Georgia. He's going to beat Stacey Abrams.
Yep.
Now
he's going to run in the 10th district. He's going to be the next congressman.
Yeah. It's like snap your fingers, switch directions, go Vernon for Congress. That's
and roll tide.
And roll tide. At the same time, all of that to say that Vernon doesn't appear to be gearing up publicly for a congressional race. Today, he tweeted out, "I cannot wait to debate Stacey Abrams." So unless Stacey Abrams is running for the 10th congressional district, it appears that Vernon currently still in that governor's race.
Well, I mean, let's war game this out a little bit. You know, in politics, Scott, you and I have learned over the years, you always got to look at who wins and who loses in these types of things. So, I mean, you and I don't know. We don't know what's in the mind of Vernon Jones. We don't know we don't know what conversations took place with Donald Trump. But imagine if you're Trump or you're David Perdue, and you've got a guy who's pulling 8, 9, 10% of the vote. You make the assumption that he's pulling that away from David Perdue, which he probably is for a large number of those people. But I mean, look, our Crimson Tide friend, who's been the cheerleader friend, has been also making the case that Vernon supporters, they don't like David Perdue any more than they like Brian Kemp. So who knows who those people are. Does Candace Taylor suddenly vault into 8, 9, 10% poll if well,
I mean, that would almost triple where she's at now. I mean,
yeah,
that would be a heck of a get for her.
I mean, I think this if you're David Perdue, you want a mano-a-mano race, which for all intents and purposes it is, but you can't really you're challenging an incumbent. You can't have people pulling away 5, 10% of the vote from you. You've got to get all of the opposition vote on your side if you're going to win this thing. And so, you know, it remains to be seen. These rumors may be true. He may pivot to the 10th congressional district, or this could be subterfuge from opposing campaigns who are trying to clear the field to get a one-on-one race with Brian Kemp. So,
well, it'll remain to be seen. Whatever happens, Georgia politics remains one of the most entertaining television shows you could watch.
That's right.
It continues to amaze me, all the intricacies and ups and downs, all these campaigns. Well, it's the best entertainment you can ask for, in my opinion.
Best reality show on TV.
It definitely best reality TV show that hasn't been filmed yet. We need to make this happen. We could call it the Gold Dome, and you and I can produce it. And
maybe we can get the film tax credit to kick in. And
amen. We'll make our neighbors pay for it, and we'll just laugh all the way to the bank.
Alabama will pay for it.
Yeah. Alabama always pays for it. In other news, changing topics without a really good transition. One of our former colleagues, who at one point was the youngest member of the legislature to get elected, has hung it up. Matt Dollar from Cobb County has decided to resign during session to take a post with the Technical College System of Georgia. And on his way out, said I think a really poignant line. He said that those who were respectful were respected. And I thought that was one of the most thoughtful things I'd ever heard Matt say. Mm-hmm. Matt and I had an opportunity to smoke some cigars together during our time in the legislature. We weren't super close friends, but I always had a lot of respect for him. Mm-hmm. Even when we didn't agree with everything, he was professional and an experienced legislator. He's been there a long time. He's no longer anywhere close to being the youngest person in the room. That's how long he's been there, but we wish him well.
He's not an old man either.
No, he's not. He's not at all. He's about my age, I think. But that being said, it does leave a hole. And there was some discussion, I think, this week about how does that hole get filled? That role, that House district is now open, at least through the end of session. And when does the election happen? And there's some confusion around that, isn't there?
Yeah, it is an interesting thing because, state law is pretty clear. If there's an open seat during the session, the desire and the intent of the law is that vacancy be filled as soon as possible because votes are taking place and the citizens of that area are not represented. And so the intent of the law is to fill that position as quickly as possible. I don't know that they can pull off an election and possibly a runoff in time to get somebody in place to cast a vote. And Scott, you and I, we've seen legislators come in. There was one poor fellow, I can't remember his name, but there was one poor fellow who came in with like 10 days left in the legislature.
Sam Moore.
Session. Yeah, Sam Moore, that's right. Came in, there were like 10 days left, and he's got to get up to speed on all the stuff that's going on. So it puts
and then he got beat.
Yeah, then he got beat.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing that I find fascinating about this, part of the reason that Representative Dollar, he had previously announced he was not going to seek re-election. He was, through the process of reapportionment, was drawn in with Representative Sharon Cooper, another longtime Cobb County representative. And so, excuse me, he had made that decision. So you have a special election, depending upon where the winning candidate lives, it could set up a primary challenge against Representative Cooper or one of the other. I don't believe there are any open seats surrounding that.
They're not. No. So somebody would have a primary challenger.
Right. So none of those representatives want this position to be filled because it could set up a primary challenge against a fellow incumbent.
Or
perhaps of the same party.
Well, let's look at it. Okay. The writ, the state law requires that the governor issue a writ to the Secretary of State indicating that there would be an election between 30 and 60 days out.
Yeah.
So if he waits the full 10 days before he issues the writ for an election. So follow me here. I know podcasting and math usually don't go together, but follow me. Okay. Today is the 2nd of February.
Scott, before we go down that, what is the effective date of Representative Dollar's resignation?
Well, I believe it was yesterday.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that. I mean,
all right. So let's assume that you're probably right. Let's assume that that's the case, right?
Right. Let's say it was yesterday.
Start the clock.
Right. Yeah. So you started the clock yesterday. He has 10 days. The governor has 10 days to issue the writ. So he doesn't have to issue the writ until the 11th of February. Mm-hmm. And then he can put the election 60 days from that date to replace him. And he will have met state law. The thing is that 60-day date is well after April 2nd, which is sine die, and the session is over.
Yeah.
It's also well after qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever should qualify for the special election would not necessarily qualify
Yeah.
for the election to challenge Cooper or whoever else
Right.
got caught up in that district that was formerly Matt Dollar's district, right?
Right.
So there's some intrigue there.
Right.
You know, this person could potentially be elected and never actually serve a legislative day.
Right.
Just earn a paycheck. You know, it's not a big paycheck. It's a very small paycheck.
But it's a paycheck.
But it's still, you know, a few $100 a month.
And your name goes in the record books as a state representative for all time.
As a state representative, you don't get any other benefit. You're not even close to getting retirement benefits. But you get to say, I was a state rep and I'd never served a day under the Gold Dome unless there's a special session.
Yeah.
Which they are rare, but have been happening more frequently lately as we've had hurricanes and other things happen. You know, it wasn't really a special session. My last session, it was an interrupted session because of COVID.
Right.
But it's possible that they never serve.
So here's a prediction. Some smart lawyer is going to in somewhere in the apparatus of the government is going to figure out a way to say we don't have to have a special election for that seat.
I think it's possible that if you squint your eyes the right way, that because the election would be after session,
right,
that an interpretation of the law could potentially be made that there is no election necessary because it would be after session.
Right. And there are if this vacancy had taken place after the session, if Representative Dollar had come forward in May and said, hey, I'm taking this job, I'm officially resigning my position, there would not have been the election would have coincided with the general election in the fall. So, which would have, it creates a weird situation because you vote twice. People have to qualify twice, and you vote twice because you fill the unexpired term, and then you elect the person for the new term. So, and there have been cases where a different person won. One person won the special election, another person was elected to the full term. So,
right. It's similar to in the same vein as when Abel Mabel Thomas ran for Congress. If she had been elected, she would never have actually served.
Right.
Right. Because they were out of session, and we're not due back until January when the new person would have won.
Yeah, Nikema Williams is now who was and is the congresswoman for that district. So
right. So similar to that. I mean, it's all kinds of strange things happen again.
But there would all the ceremonial stuff would have happened, and Abel Mabel would have been a member of Congress for all time. That would be recorded in the books. For all time that she was a congresswoman. So
again, Georgia politics, the most interesting, entertaining thing you could possibly get engaged and watch. But Representative Dollar, you are a good guy. We appreciate your service. Thank you for that. Your decades of service to the state have been invaluable. Thank you.
Indeed. Here.
But one of the things that it will leave a hole in, Representative Dollar was a pro school choice advocate, and which we have now lost a vote from him in support of a really good piece of legislation, that being Wes Cantrell's bill that would fund students and not systems. Yeah. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what the bill would do before we get into some of the controversy around it?
Right. So there are two pieces of legislation. All right. House Bill 60 was a bill that Representative Cantrell introduced last year. And I think he discussed this when he was a guest on this podcast. He's made some modifications to that bill, most notably that the income threshold, now the income cap, previously was capped at 200% of the federal poverty level, now would be capped at 400% of the poverty level. So a family could earn up to that amount of money, which translates to about roughly $100,000 family income, and the person could still qualify. Excuse me. So HB 60 passed out of the amended version, passed out of the House Education Committee yesterday and was sent to rules. Okay. The second bill that he introduced, House Bill 999, and somewhere Herman Cain is smiling. The House Bill 999 is a similar bill. It's different in in a couple ways, but two principal ways. Number one, it is not a it is a totally new program that would be funded separately and outside of the QBE, Quality Basic Education formula. So the legislature would have to say, all right, we are going to appropriate X dollars, X millions of dollars, hopefully lots, 100 million, 200 million, something large like that. It's set at $6,000 per student, whereas House Bill 60 is set at 95% of the average QBE funding level, which is, puts it at roughly $5,500, $5,700, somewhere in that range. The other thing is that there is no cap. It is a universal eligibility. Any student who's currently enrolled in Georgia public schools would be eligible for under House Bill 999. So House Bill HB 60 passed out of the Education Committee as amended and is sent to rules. House Bill 999 passed out of the Education Innovation Education Innovation Subcommittee, I believe that's the name, essentially the School Choice Subcommittee, and is currently awaiting a hearing in Education Committee. So that's where we're at. There was very passionate, interesting debate in subcommittee about House Bill 999, and it was stunning to watch. I wasn't down there at the Capitol. I was working out of my house here. I had a presentation to give online, but the parade of lobbyists, paid
taxpayer-funded lobbyists.
Most of them were taxpayer-funded lobbyists. They represented the school board. They represented, various school systems, such as the Cobb County system, and another one, a consortium of systems. Many of them were taxpayer-funded lobbying entities who were there to oppose the bill. And unfortunately, a technical glitch. There were a couple of citizens who wanted to testify remotely. There was a technical glitch, and they could not testify. But there was one mom from Gwinnett County who came and testified.
One of the most compelling interactions, and I wish we had the video to tee it up, came between a Democrat who is running for Secretary of State named Bee Nguyen.
Yep.
Who is a Democratic superstar. She raised $1 million for her Secretary of State's race. So she's been tapped as the candidate du jour for that race in Secretary of State's for Democratic nomination there. And she came and she asked Wes Cantrell. Wes Cantrell is at the podium. She comes and she says, where's the accountability with these dollars? Where and how is it fair that school systems would have accountability and these dollars don't have that same accountability? And right. Wes Cantrell definitely and brilliantly just gave her the biggest mic drop moment of the day, where he said to her, you are absolutely right, Representative Nguyen. There is not the same level of accountability, because with these dollars, there would be a higher level of accountability, because if the parents weren't happy with what was happening with their child, they could pull their kid from that school and take them to another one. Yep. So the school would be more receptive to the parents who have to, in the schools would be competing for those dollars. So the accountability is absolutely higher under this program than what we have today. So you're right. It's not the same. It's much higher than it is with the public school system.
And look, that's the thing, right? If a private school, if they cannot attract enough students to their school to adequately fund their operations, they go out of business. If a public school does not meet the needs of its students, and cannot attract the number of students necessary, they pump more money into the school, more taxpayer dollars into the school to try to prop it up. So it's immune to the free market, to these free market forces that put pressure on schools to deliver a quality education. So that was a beautiful moment. Representative Cantrell, he did a great job throughout the whole debate and answering questions, and that there was in subcommittee is where the opposition was able to testify. In full committee, they didn't take testimony, as is often the case on many committees. there was debate among the legislators and members of the committee, and there was some very good interactions there. The one you mentioned there, that's where that took place, Scott. And there were other discussions among legislators. And look, I hate to cast aspersions on people. I'm not casting this aspersion on Representative Wynn, who's a smart person, and I believe that she crafted her own questions and asked her own questions because that's sincerely what she believes. I respect that about her. But as I'm watching, I saw other representatives who are opposed to the bill reading from emails that they received, and they were staring at their phone reading the questions. And there were these lobbyists that were paid were texting and emailing opposition legislators questions to ask. Again, if folks have principled opposition to the bill, fine, I respect that. If folks are simply just acting on behalf of, if legislators are simply just acting on behalf of other interests, I don't know. That's
Democrats nationally have been opposed to these types of measures, no matter where they've been tried. And, Virginia is another great example of how they said the quiet part out loud when they said parents should not be making decisions about what's good for their children and their school. Yep. And that should be made. Those decisions should be made by somebody else, not parents. And so we know where Democrats are on this issue. Right. But these types of issues seem to come up all the time, led by guys like Wes Cantrell, who are advocating for parents and families that are in minority families, that are poor, that are rich, doesn't matter. He's advocating for parental empowerment, no matter where you are on the economic ladder. Yep. And we have a group of Republicans time and time again that join with the Democrats to kill these things. Yeah. Are we seeing that this time?
Well, I hope not, but we're certainly seeing the attempts, Scott. And before the broadcast, we were talking about this. There's some fringe elements who are attempting to hijack this issue for their pet issue. And I'm not saying their pet issue is not important, but it has absolutely nothing to do with this issue. What's at issue here is the fact the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, GOSA. They are in charge of collecting data on schools, and they report this. You can look this numbers up to verify me here if you dispute this. That 39% of our schools receive a grade according to Georgia's school grading system of either D or F. That accounts for over 600,000, close to 650,000 students in the state of Georgia, out of 1.7 million kids who attend public schools. That's outrageous that there are that many kids who are in schools that receive D's or F's. So that's who the bill that Representative Cantrell, those are the potential customers. I'm not saying that 600,000 kids are immediately going to flee the public schools. However, that's who these bills are attempted to help, people who do not have the financial means on their own to leave the public school and go to a school that might better meet their needs. And to attempt to hijack that for an issue that has nothing to do with it, an issue, meanwhile, that Representative Cantrell claims says he has addressed. And I looked at the copy of the bill there. The language that he said was in the bill is in the bill.
So let's be clear about what we're talking about. I don't think I'm not following, but I know what you're talking about, but I'm not really necessarily following. We have fringe elements who claim to be Republicans, who want to keep kids trapped in these schools, these 600,000 kids you talked about. They want to keep these kids trapped there specifically because they believe that this would benefit even one illegal alien in Georgia. Yeah. And that they're not willing.
And worse than that, they spun this through some right-wing blogs like Gateway Pundit, that as if the purpose of this bill is to funnel taxpayer money to illegal immigrants. That's the purpose of the bill, which is preposterous. It's not the purpose of the bill.
No,
we have, and it's not even. It's not, and now that Representative Cantrell has addressed the issue, it's not even an unintended consequence of the bill.
Right. So the opposition to the bill, let me back up for a second. There are a handful of Republicans who are afraid of their own shadow whenever their superintendent calls. Yep. Their superintendents back home pick up the phone, they call their state rep or their state senator, and they tell them. And the moment the caller ID pops up, these people break out into a cold sweat.
Yeah.
They're afraid of their superintendents. And so they're looking for an excuse, any excuse at all, to vote against this legislation. And this would give them that cover so that they can't say, oh, well, my superintendent didn't like it. Of course, your superintendent's not going to like it. It makes them compete, which is a Republican principle, by the way.
Right.
It makes them compete for public tax dollars. Right. Used to be.
Yeah.
But it makes them compete for public tax dollars. And if they're doing a good job, if they're actually working hard and doing the job, they're going to get the money.
Yes.
Because the parents are going to be happy with that school. But they use this as the excuse that illegal aliens are involved. So here's the thing about illegal aliens. Federal law tells us we cannot turn illegal aliens away
the public school
from public school.
Right.
And so we are funding them whether we like it or not, because the federal government hasn't gotten off their tush and fixed it. Right. And you're not going to find anybody who wants to fix the immigration problem worse than me. And now I'm not Jason Pye. I'm not an open border guy. And I'm not saying Jason necessarily is either, but he's far more to my left on this issue than I am.
Yeah.
And I want to see the immigration system fixed. Right. I want people to be able to come here lawfully. And I don't want people who come here and break the law to benefit from their illegal activity. Right. So I am your typical Republican here.
Yep.
But we get into this dangerous situation, Buzz, whenever guys like this fringe dude decide that they want to make this about illegal aliens, that we give up freedoms and liberty in order to make sure that somebody else is kept down. Yeah. And so we have a third of our school children in this state in a close to failing or failing school. Mm-hmm. And we have guys like Wes who are trying, and he tried to work with this fringe guy, right? He tried to, but this fringe guy's not having it. And I think part of the problem is, I had a similar experience with another bill. I think part of the problem is this fringe guy needs to be able to make this argument and not fix the problem so that he can raise money and stay in business. And it drives me crazy that people would be willing to trade essential liberties and freedoms like having quality access to education in exchange for keeping a brown person or somebody you don't like down. Yeah. We in this country, we do not pass laws and we do not limit our freedoms and liberties because somebody else might break the law, a different unrelated law. We just don't do that. So when you go to work, when you go to school, the laws that apply here have nothing to do with what somebody else might do illegally. Yeah. It has to do with you as an American citizen. Right. And what's your right? And what are you paying for as a taxpayer? Are you getting everything that you need as a citizen of Georgia? Mm-hmm. If somebody else might break the law, and it'd be horrendous that and I would agree with you that it's horrendous, but we do not lock children into failing or nearly failing schools because somebody else might break the law. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And if you're in the legislature and you're watching this, I'm talking to you right now. Yeah. I'm talking to you. Do not use this fringe guy's twisted version of what
incorrect
this bill
information does. Yeah.
Don't use it as cover. Yeah. Don't. I'll name you here. I will name you here. Yeah. So,
right. That's cowardice, right? It's cowardice. It's not if look, again, if you're a representative, you've got a principled opposition to this bill. Okay, let's debate that. But don't look for excuses. And look, there's all sorts of things we can say about this, but killing this bill, as this fringe guy wants to do, would not reduce the amount of illegal immigrants that the state of Georgia has by one single person.
It will not.
It will impact that 600,000 plus kids that we've been talking about. So it's.
And here's the other thing too. If you're a rural legislator, if you're in rural Georgia, and you think this isn't going to help the kids in my district, you're wrong. Right. Buzz and I, and Wes Cantrell for that matter, have voted for dozens and dozens of pieces of legislation that help rural Georgia.
Absolutely.
And
happy to do it. It's the right thing to do.
It was the right thing to do We were trying to help you in your situation and your district, even though not one person in the 21st House district that I represented would have benefited from it. It was the right thing to do. And so if your argument is this doesn't help my district, first of all, you're wrong. It will.
It will. Absolutely.
Because the money that comes with funding students will create opportunities in your district.
Yeah. And I'll give you an example of that, Scott. There's a young man down in Albany, Georgia, named King Randall. That's his Twitter handle, at least. I assume that's his real name. He's a young African American gentleman. I don't know how old he is. My guess is he's in his mid-20s. He looked around his community. He saw a bunch of young folks, young men, aimless, and said, "All right, I'm going to bring some of them into my home, and I'm going to mentor them." That group grew. And he now runs a school for those students. Every one of those students would absolutely benefit from this piece of legislation. Every one of those students, by the way, are legal citizens of America and in the state of Georgia.
Right.
They would benefit. And he says, he's been on Twitter. You can look up his Twitter feed, King Randall. He's been talking about, he was one of those person who was set to testify remotely. I believe he's now released a video of what his testimony would have been. But he talks about how, look, if this bill's created, more schools will be created. He knows it because he's talked to people who would do so.
Right.
He knows. He did it himself. This man, he wasn't backed by any wealth-heeled people or nothing. He went out and hustled and raised the money himself to build a school to meet a need in his community. And there are others out there who would do the exact same thing, and he knows it, and he's exactly right. So yes, if there's not a school in your district, they will come. They will come if you empower parents. And never before, we see over and over again, we see, Scott, your county has experienced, my county is experiencing it. Parents are now more aware of what's going on in their classroom thanks to the COVID and having to do Zoom school than they've ever been before. And look, maybe parents should have been aware, but now they really are aware. And look, I don't mean this as a blanket criticism in public schools. There are many people are not mad at their teachers. They're mad at the system. And they're saying the system is not delivering what it needs for our students. And there needs to be reform of the traditional public schools. Overwhelmingly, parents are saying, we do not want things to go back to how they were before the pandemic. We want something better.
Right.
So the public schools need to improve. Competition helps with that. New schools that meet the needs of students who don't fit well into the traditional public school system need to be created all over the state. This is a way to do it. And I mean, if we want to sit in the 19th century, then defeat this bill. But if we want to move our state forward, we better pass it.
So if you're in one of those rural districts and this comes to the floor and you vote no because it doesn't help you, you're wrong.
Yeah,
you're wrong. Every time your rural development council has a piece of legislation, everybody lines up to help you. You need to help everybody else. This is your opportunity to return the favor.
Absolutely. And Scott, it's a winning issue. It's a winning issue.
It absolutely
is.
Over and
over again, it's been demonstrated. It's a winning issue.
If we're going to beat Stacey Abrams,
Democrat, whoever, it's a winning issue.
If we're going to beat Stacey Abrams, it's going to be on stuff like this. Glenn Youngkin and Winsome Sears proved it in Virginia. You have to embrace empowering parents. This is the time for you to embrace empowering the citizens that you represent.
West Virginia last year passed a bill that covered 90% of the parents in that state. Every one of them was reelected. So
that just goes to show you that sometimes Georgia politics, as entertaining as it can be counterintuitive as well.
And sometimes it's frustrating as heck.
Yeah. I mean, look, this fringe guy he gets a little too much credit. We're not mentioning his name for a reason. We don't want to add credibility to him. And
it annoys the heck out of him when we don't mention his name.
Right.
So.
And so you're welcome for that, sir. The thing that you also need to know is this guy does this with a lot of different issues.
Yes.
And
he hijacks a lot of issues.
Zero credibility with anybody left in the dome. There was a time when people would really listen to him and he would be in the room on some really key points and key pieces of legislation. He's not anymore. And he hasn't been for a long time. I think there might be one member of the Cherokee delegation left that would like to have him on her side, but that's it. There is nobody else left in the legislature that goes to this guy and says, please teach me Obi-Wan. Those days are gone. Right. The Republican Party has moved beyond this guy and it drives him crazy. It drives him absolutely crazy. So he tries to hijack a lot of issues. I had a professional licensing bill my last year in the legislature it was modeled after a bill that passed in Arizona that offered reciprocity for professional licenses. My thing is, if I'm professionally licensed and I meet all the same skills and requirements that are substantially similar from state to state, why do I need to start over from scratch if I'm cutting hair or if I'm an interior designer or, and so, or a pest control guy or an HVAC repairman or whatever your professional license is, a massage therapist.
Yeah.
Why do you need to start over when you go from state to state? As an American, I believe in freedom and liberty, and I should be able to move from state to state, and that my education should come with me. My qualifications should come with me. My professional license is one of those things. And so if the standards are pretty similar from state to state, we would say, all right, you're coming from Arizona. We recognize your license. Welcome to Georgia. We're not going to hit you with all kinds of wacky requirements so that you could go back to work. This is important. Why? Well, we have the highest number of Georgians employed. We have a 2-point-something unemployment rate. We need people to be able to move here and fill the jobs so that our economy doesn't keep racing with inflation. You need a healthy supply of workers, legal American workers, to be ready to plug and play into our economy that's raging and on fire right now. It's a rocket to the moon. And we can't keep people employed because we're not employed. We can't keep filling these jobs that keep opening at a record pace. So we have a ton of jobs open, nobody to fill them. And I introduced this piece of legislation that would have, had it been law today, helped us in this regard. Along comes the fringe guy. And I love the nickname we gave him on the fly. Fringe guy says, oh, some states allow illegal aliens to have professional licenses. You can't do this. And so I put a line in the bill from his feedback. Saying they have to pass E-Verify. Or some other similar standard. And he's like, oh, well, that doesn't fix it at all. I was like, well, then tell me how. Well, it doesn't get fixed. Well, you can't just come and tell me,
that's exactly what he's saying now, right?
Yeah. You can't come and tell me that there's no solution to this problem. And besides the fact, if I'm an American citizen, I should be able to go work where the hell I want to work. I'm an American. Oh no, we've got to give up some. I mean, I had this Facebook battle with him. Oh, you have to give up some freedom in order to tamp down on. No, you don't. You're an American. You don't give up your freedom because somebody else might break the law. Anyway, I've said that before, but that's my main point here. I get passionate
we can
about
recount
it
other stories that
we live in one of the greatest places in the world. It's why these people want to move here from other countries. Why are we trying to make it shittier?
Yeah.
I mean, why are we trying to make this place a crap hole to live in and a teapot dictatorship from state to state because you're afraid of the guy that moves here illegally? Or look, I have a nice car. Sometimes people break into cars. I'm not going to not have a nice car because somebody might break into it. I'm going to drive my nice car.
You drive a beat up 88 Honda, nobody's going to steal your car or break into it.
But you're driving an 88 beat up Honda. Nobody wants to do that.
With 350,000 miles on it.
So that's his mindset though.
Yeah.
Oh no, everybody needs an 88 Honda with 350,000 miles so that we don't have to worry about people breaking into them.
Yeah.
And it's just wrong. It's wrong-headed. It's backwards, and it's time to move on from that type of.
And look, Scott, the economist Thomas Sowell, one of my heroes, says that in policy there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And so what you do in a situation like this is you say, okay, there's a potential problem. Representative Cantrell has addressed it. There will be other barriers put up around, guardrails rather, put up around this policy. Lord willing, it'll pass and become law. There'll be to prevent fraud and abuse and we're not going to limit freedom and opportunity of the law-abiding because somebody else someplace might break the law. And that's you're exactly right, Scott. That's how we have to operate. And again, to our former colleagues in the legislature, don't be the coward and use this coward's way out to do what's right by your citizens. And hand an easy win to the Republicans. I mean, good gracious.
You all have something to run on. Every
you,
single
me, and I mean, come on. This is the way.
So talking about things that don't make sense. Rivian is going to build a $5 billion plant.
Yeah.
Out near Social Circle, right?
Rutledge, Georgia. Yep.
Which a really nice, beautiful part. And there's some people out there who are upset about it, but it's going to $5 billion plant is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's going to employ hundreds, if not thousands of Georgians. It's going to have a ripple effect. Anytime there's a manufacturing plant, it has an upward rising tide effect on the economy in that area. And everybody out there is going to be richer for getting there. But am I right when I hear that Rivian would not be allowed to sell their vehicles in Georgia?
Under current state law, that's the case, yes. So let's give a little background here. It's not, this is one of these issues, Scott. You've got a new technology, you've got new companies who come along and want to sell their products in different ways than, traditionally the way cars have been sold is, let's say you want to buy a Ford or a Honda, you go over to the Ford dealership and you look around on all the cars that they have on their lot, and then you walk over to the Honda dealership and you look at all the cars that they have on their lot and you pick one, and then you sign the paperwork and you hand you the keys and you drive off. That's how cars have been sold traditionally. These newer companies like Tesla and Rivian and Fisker and these other electric who are solely electric vehicle manufacturers, they don't want to. First of all, they want to come in and compete for your sales, and they don't want to set up this giant network of dealerships across the country. So they want to sell it through like little Apple Store type things, right? You walk in and there's brochures and there's
factory outlet.
Yeah, right. That's how they want to sell their vehicles. So in recent years, we accommodated Tesla, because at the time Tesla was the only company that did this, and we allowed them to sell a certain number. I can't remember the numbers. At one point, it was like 150 cars per year, and that accommodated their sales. And then we bumped it up. I think I co-sponsored a bill with it was Representative Chuck Martin's bill. We were trying just to do away with this system without destroying all the business owners who own traditional car lots. We couldn't get that done, so we increased the number that Tesla could sell in the state of Georgia. But now here comes Rivian, and the law currently excludes them because it only applies to Tesla. So there's a bill. Representative Chuck Martin has one in the House. Senator Ben Watson has one in the Senate. And it's structured, I think pretty well, that should solve this for all. So it basically says if you're a U.S. manufacturer of electric vehicles who does not currently have a dealership arrangement with any dealer in the United States, then you can sell cars in Georgia through this kiosk style of sales. Now, of course, there are laws that apply. They have to provide service in the event of recalls and all these sorts of things. So they would have to do that. They have to set up the operations to do that sort of thing, which mostly what they're going to do is sign contracts with local auto mechanics and body shops around the state. That's what's going to
provide them the tools and training to fix the stuff.
Exactly.
Or we could just go with a right to repair and let anybody fix it at any time.
Right. Yeah, sure. So you can do it yourself, or you can, under Scott's vision, you can do it yourself, or you can hire an expert to do it. Whatever you want to do, either way you want to go.
Three tiers of repair.
That's a beautiful
going
thing.
Back to the manufacturer. There's hiring an independent contractor like a mechanic or a repair person. And then the third tier is self-repair. All right.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I'm hopeful. I think, obviously, with Rivian coming, it would be kind of embarrassing to say Rivian can manufacture cars here, but they can't sell them. That would be a really strange situation. And so hopefully one of the, either Representative Martin or Senator Watson's bill will pass, and we'll get this issue ironed out. But I don't think the piecemeal approach that we've had to do in the past is going to work, because otherwise they're going to have a bill like this every year. And just fix it.
So we have one more topic, and it's the last one of the night. It will. Jason's not here to defend himself on this,
and
but I
probably
have
defend
noticed
the entire dog nation, right?
I mean, you do your best, Georgia Tech boy. I have noticed an extraordinarily disturbing trend, Buzz, an extraordinarily disturbing trend, and that is all of these Atlanta sports fans who claim loyalty to the Atlanta sports scene are apparently going to root for a team from the communist nation of Los Angeles.
All right, now wait a minute. Now we know that you are a Cincinnati Reds baseball fan.
Of course, yes.
Are you a Cincinnati? Are you a Cincinnati Bengals football fan?
Okay, so it's complicated.
Do you have any conflicting?
There's no simple answer to this question other than to say, I grew up in Florida. I was born near Cincinnati. At a young age, I moved to Florida. I grew up rooting for two football teams in the NFL. And my first and foremost team will always be the Miami Dolphins. And we won't talk about the Brian Flores stuff.
They should have never fired him. It just blows my mind they fired him. That's all we need to say about that.
It was ridiculous that they fired him. But anyway, I mean, you go on a 7-game winning streak to start. Anyway, it was done. We're not going to talk about that. But I grew up watching Dan Marino throw fourth quarter comeback touchdown passes to Mark Clayton and Mark Duper.
Yeah.
Over and over. And so I became a Miami Dolphins fan because it was what was on TV in the Orlando area where I grew up. So, but my grandfather was a Bengals fan and a Reds fan. The Red stuff, we didn't have a baseball team down there. There were no Marlins. There were no Rays. It was spring training baseball, Cubs and Braves on TV. But with the Cubs and Braves, the Reds played them often. So I could still watch a lot of Reds baseball, especially the Cubs. It seemed like every other game they were playing the Reds when I was growing up. So I got to watch a lot of Reds on TV because of that. But that being said, the Bengals have always been my number 2 team. And depending on how well they're doing, my number 1 team. And so right now they're my number 1 team. And so it's complicated.
Yes.
But that being said,
as sports loyalties normally are, right?
My last time I saw the Bengals in the Super Bowl, Boomer Esiason versus Joe Montana. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how long ago it's been.
And you should point out, look, this was the Joe Montana team. This wasn't the Joe Montana team with Jerry Rice and that unbelievable defense. I mean, it was a very good team, no doubt. But this was, they relied on Joe Montana miracles all year long, and that was that famous catch against Dallas.
There's a man somewhere named Lewis Billups who played safety for the Bengals, who dropped a touchdown, dropped an interception in the end zone, and then the next play, Daniel Craig caught the catch to put the 49ers over the Bengals in that Super Bowl. I remember the pain. I remember the pain fresh and vivid. I would imagine it's similar to how the average Falcon fan felt after 28-3.
Well, that's an off limits.
But this is there's an opportunity to commiserate between the Cincinnati and the Atlanta fan base.
Well, no, all right. So we'll make your point about and then
I don't understand. Okay, LA hates Atlanta.
Yeah,
there is nobody in LA who thinks Atlanta and thought, oh, that's a great place.
Yeah, we're stealing all their movies, right?
We're stealing their jobs.
We're beating their baseball team.
We beat the Dodgers. If Bill Plaschke comes to Atlanta, he disparages Truist Park. He disparages Waffle House. How dare you, sir? How dare you? And we're going to somehow get on the Los Angeles Rams bandwagon. I cannot allow this, Buzz. I cannot allow this to go uncontested. And the reason why they're saying is because Matthew Stafford and Sony Michel and Leonard Floyd all played for the Bulldogs. Well, so did Ty Hill, who is the backup center for the Bengals. He played at UGA. I mean, you got UGA players on both teams. Why are you picking the communists? I mean, that's my take. You listen. If Ronald Reagan moved to Russia and flew the hammer and sickle, I'm not rooting for him no more. Come on, people. He's not my guy anymore.
Folks have always had. I mean, Matthew Stafford, obviously, very popular player while he was at the University of Georgia.
Never won a damn thing.
Right, and folks have felt sorry for him because he was stuck on the Bengals. I mean, on the Lions.
Yeah,
on the Lions for all those years.
Well, I felt sorry.
So was one of my heroes, Calvin Johnson,
who made him infinitely better, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But look, your point's well taken, and I don't doubt that at the Super Bowl there are going to be people calling the dogs and barking and whatnot every time Stafford does something good or Sony Michel does something good. I don't doubt that at all. I mean, that's just. I love them, man, but that's just what they do. But yeah, I mean, I think now for me, I lived in Los Angeles for a while. I still have a soft spot in my heart for the Dodgers. I was at that age, I was much more of a baseball fan than I was a football fan. So I really couldn't care less about the Rams. And they can't make up their mind what city they want to be in. They were in LA, then they moved to St. Louis, and they ripped the hearts out of the St. Louis fans and moved back to LA. So, yeah, I think the Bengals are an unbelievable story. Nobody thought that team was going to get there. Joe Burrow, I mean, he is that dude. I mean, he's just unbelievable, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see him, guys like him and Patrick Mahomes and a lot of these other, Josh Allen, a bunch of these, Justin Herbert out and with the Chargers. It's just a great crop of young quarterbacks, and yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping for a great game, but your point is well taken that there's, and really, if you want to go back, we used to be just like we were with the Dodgers. The Falcons used to be in the same division with the 49ers and the Rams and.
Yeah.
So they were rivals, man. They used to come in here and thump us all the time.
Yeah, it was a cupcake matchup for them for years and years and years. They looked down on this city. Everybody in California, no matter what city, they look down on our state. I have some pride, man. They don't care what college ball team these guys played for. They still think you suck. They don't like you at all. There's nothing redeeming about you in their eyes. Let's band together here. As two fan bases who have known what loss looks like and know what feels like.
So here's a counter argument to the Bengals for cheering for the Bengals that Wendy Adams, one of the producers at 92.9 The Game, was tweeting out or talking about the other day. The Falcons have never won a Super Bowl. Okay, the Bengals never won a Super Bowl. We can't pull for a team to end their misery before we end ours. Come on, we can't. You guys need to suffer until we need. Atlantans need to care more about the suffering of the Falcons than they do about the poor fans in Cincinnati.
That is the most inhumane, mean-spirited. Like, I want you to feel the same pain I feel. I mean, why can't we just lift each other up? Why can't we? When you see a friend in a hole, do you stand up above the hole and pee on them, or do you reach down and try to help them out? I mean, she's peeing on me right now. That's what's happening. I disagree with her completely. Ladies and gentlemen, Georgia politics, the most fascinating thing you could possibly watch in reality TV. And we hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Peach Pundit podcast. We'll catch you next time with our intrepid leader, Jason Pye. Until then, be nice to each other and go Bengals. Who day?
Later, folks.